Then the fourth piece, when I get in the meeting, is to set an agenda, and I just follow the agenda that was set up on the letter that I'd given to the person. And I set the agenda, and then I prepare a short 2-minute or less elevator speech, or you might call it a hook statement. Now I'm going to read one, and this is the one that I used, and you want to know it pretty tight. So you don't want to memorize it from the standpoint of sounding robotic or sounding like it's a memorized thing. It needs to be natural. And so the language I use may not be the language you would use, so make it your own. And but you want to basically cover the key points. So I'm going to read one that I used, and then you can kind of use this and tailor this for what you need. So again, I've set the agenda for the meeting. I'm sitting with this target person, that my bridge person, in this case Cindy, gave me the name of the person. And so after I set the agenda of what we're going to accomplish, then I'm going to let them know kind of a little bit about me. And so here's an example. I appreciate you investing this time to help with my career campaign. I've spent most of my career training employees in customer service, sales, and technology. I also create employee retention and management development programs. I recently completed a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration with a major in finance at the University of Louisville. And my goal is to use this knowledge in my work and life experience to help a company grow its revenues and market share. After speaking with Cindy about your experience, I'm really looking forward to learning more about your career path and recommendations for how I should proceed along my own path. And again, just craft something similar to that. The keys there is that you want to throw out just a couple of experiences, just very high level of kind of what you do. So they have some framework and context of kind of what you do and what your background is without going into a lot of detail about it. And then kind of speak to where you're at more philosophically and what you would like, what result you would like to create for an organization. Always creating linkages between what you've done, your work experience, and what you've done for companies. A lot of people, they list, here's what I've done, my responsibilities and my job description, but they never link it to an actual result. And that's what impresses people. When I can show that as the result of the work that I did and my responsibilities, here's the impact that I had on companies. So I look at, here's the what, this is what I did, and then here was the impact. And so I always want to draw the linkage. I don't want to assume that they're going to make it and draw it for themselves. So that's kind of the 2-minute hook statement. Then I immediately get into questions. Keep in mind, I'm only asking for 15 to 20 minutes. It's not a lot of time. It goes by extremely fast. So I set the agenda, I do my hook statement. And then I ask some questions and I stick to my agenda. And I have some questions that are key that I wanted to kind of review. We talked about these at the event. Usually I would start with something, just an easy question. Kind of describe to me how what your path was to get you to where you are now. Let them talk a little bit about their background. Then one of the questions I asked, what was your educational background? How did that play a role in your career progression? And then this was a key question. And this is where you can really solidify the relationship and the rapport that you're building with this person. Okay, and this is where it's in this moment that 15 minutes you've asked for could turn into an interview, or it could turn into maybe an hour meeting with this person where you really get into some deep discussion. Okay. And the question, I actually learned this from a Business First reporter. I watched them do an interview. It's great to watch professional people in the media do interviews. You learn a lot of great questioning techniques. And so the question that I asked is, describe to me maybe some person, place, or event that was a defining moment in your career. Something that really had an impact that really kind of changed the course of your career. Now what this does is it invites them to tell their absolute favorite business story, success story that everybody else has heard a million times, and you're asking for it, okay? And literally you will see the body language change with most people when you ask this question. It's a very powerful question, okay? So you work that in, use the language that you want to say. Now at this point, we're probably halfway, the interview's probably halfway over, and so I need to start transitioning out, because my goal in getting this meeting is I'd like to get more names. So I'm going to continue asking a few questions about other groups, trade associations, companies, industries maybe I should look into. And then at the end, when I get to the 15 minutes, it's one of the few times when I'm in a meeting, I'm actually going to look at my watch and say, the 15 minutes I've asked for is up, and I don't want to take up any more of your time. Most of the time, if you've done a good job presenting yourself and having conversation and listening well, they're going to meet with you for an hour. Okay, they'll say, oh, don't worry about it, Eric, I've got plenty of time. That is normally what will happen. Now, if someone really has to get out of the office, it's no big deal, because that's what you've asked for. You've made a connection, and so it's a successful meeting because you've had the meeting. Okay, and so feel good about that you were willing, because it takes something to pick the phone up and to have one of these meetings. Okay, it takes a lot of courage to do that, and the more you do it, the more confidence you're going to get from doing it. And so at that point, if they open it up for more conversation, then I'll keep we'll keep having some conversation. I'll have additional questions prepared. But I want to make sure that if I needed to, I could wrap up in 15 minutes if necessary. Okay? So, and toward the end of the meeting, whether it's right then at the 15 minutes or as time goes on, then what I want to say is, I don't expect you to know this right now, but I'd love to be able to continue my research with other people. Would you be able to give some thought to maybe 2 or 3 people that you know, people that are executives, business owners, HR executives in the community that I could connect with in the same way that I've connected with you? Again, knowing that I'm not expecting them to have a job, but I would love to kind of just get their feedback and their advice. Almost everybody's going to say yes to that, okay? And it gives you an excuse to follow up with a person a couple days later. And it's not uncommon during these meetings that they're going to ask for your resume, and I would always do all that in a follow-up. It just gives you an excuse to connect with them. And so when I'm done, I always want to send them a thank you note, and I can do just dropping them a nice handwritten note in the mail. I think has a really nice personal touch. And I would start small, so you're only going to have a handful of these meetings. So make it where the follow-up is manageable. If you're already employed somewhere, your time may be more limited than someone who is currently in transition and has more time to devote to this process. And then I repeat the process. So now my new bridge person is this person that I just met with. And then they're going to give me contacts, and I'll continue the process. And I'll just continue doing that. And what will happen as a result of this is that you will be in the office of some people who will be willing to create a position for you, and that's really the whole goal of it. So kind of another point to this, to kind of take away from all of these different elements, is be sure to stay active in this group through LSHRM and the other activities that LSHRM has and sponsors, because there's a lot of good networking that you can do, a lot of relationships that you can build. So you definitely want to stay plugged in. Even if you do get a position somewhere, don't lose those connections. Okay, that's another way to kind of lose out on kind of really building a network that you can have for the rest of your career. So just to quickly recap, you want to make a list of the people that you know that you're going to reach out to. Let them know that you're not asking for a job of anybody. You just want to do some research. Okay. The second piece, send the approach letter, including the bridge person's name immediately in there so that person will actually read the letter. Then set up the meeting, pick up the phone and call the person. The 4th step, stick to the agenda that you set from the letter and follow it to the letter. And when there's that 15 minutes or 20 minutes, whatever you've confirmed, acknowledge that that time is up and that you would understand if they need to move on to other things. But block your time out so that you have the time available should they have more time. The 5th piece is to ask to continue the follow-up and to get additional names that they may be willing to share in the same way that you've connected with them. 6th, send a thank you. And the 7th piece is to repeat the process. Continue doing the process, and you really will have a lot of fun, and you'll find a great career as the result of that, and you'll make a lot of good connections along the way. And again, my name is Eric Brown. For those of you that were in the class, I really enjoyed meeting you and really wish you the best of success and in your career search and in your endeavors. So enjoy a profitable, prosperous week.